Hey, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here, members of the public. Also, excuse me. I'm not as under the weather as I look and sound. It's just I have a nagging cough, and I'm trying not to spread what little left of nastiness might be in my body, but I actually feel quite. Welcome to our Portland Public Schools RESJ Citizens Advisory Council Committee. Excuse me, used to council from my previous district. My name is Renard Adams. I'm the Chief of Research Accountability and Assessment. I lead the Racial Equity and Social Justice Office. I'll talk more about me as the new leader in a little bit. I wanted to start tonight with a land acknowledgement, and Will Fernandez is going to take us through that. Will?
Thanks, guys. Everyone, I'm Will Fernandez. For those of you who are new to the space, I work in the Racial Equity and Social Justice Department. If you've been following along with our CAC meetings, one of the things that we are trying to move towards in PBS is not only doing land acknowledgements, but doing land acknowledgements that feel authentic and are with purpose. And one of those purposes could be around learning and learning together, or highlighting wins. And so what we wanted to do tonight was highlight that on December 1st of 2023, so about a month and a half ago, the Sauvie Island Bridge was renamed to the Wapato Bridge. The name comes from a wetland plant long harvested from the Lower Columbia Basin by indigenous tribes. And though it is a win, we also want to acknowledge that many people on the committee are also trying to get the Sauvie Island itself renamed. So we wanted to share that as our land acknowledgement.
Thank you for that. Who's been to Sauvie Island? I have as well. They have a really, I found out about them because I have a dog, and there's a nice, a really wonderful dog kennel up there, and it's like a farm, and they get to run around and play, and he loves it. We say you're going to the farm, and he's at the front door, waiting for you to pack up all these things. So that's great news. Well, I'm glad that, that bridge renaming has happened and gone in that direction. So thank you for that. Let's start with the land, not a land acknowledgement, but the next slide, Lydia. Wanted to quickly have a warm welcome since I'm new to the space and it's a new year. I know we are scheduled to have these meetings every quarter. We were not able to schedule one the first quarter of the school year before the teacher work stoppage, and then that happened. And so we're sort of just getting our feet up under us. So our goal is to have 3 meetings between now and June to make up for the fact that we didn't have 2 meetings the first half of the, we couldn't include 2 meetings by December. So what I love is if we could go around the room and members of the public, can I ask you to participate? Are you okay with that? If everybody could give your name, your pronouns, your role, and then answer this question or one of these 2 questions. What keeps you energized around racial equity work? What continues to light your fire or fuel your engine? And I can't start because I have to introduce myself after this. So somebody else has to go first. Lydia, I'll call on you.
Oh, okay. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Lydia Lopez Gamboa, and I'm the project manager for the RESJ team. Pronouns she, her, ella. And what keeps me energized, just seeing and hearing about all the amazing things that our kids, especially our students of color, are doing, graduating, and you know, making positive impact in the community, and continue to in their success.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah. My name is Anna Marquez. I'm a parent of an 8th grader at Hockley Middle School. I also taught in PPS for 16 years and am a former student in PPS as well. So yeah, my whole life has been really, you know, surrounded around PPS, the PPS world. So I think what keeps me energized around racial equity work is continuing to see inequities and continuing to notice all of the differences and experiences that our students have, and wanting to make a difference. students to improve that.
Thank you. And your pronouns, Lisa?
She created, yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I can go. My name's Nohea Ivilani Ole, and my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. And my role is, I'm with Reconnection Services, and I was at Marysville on the last year. I think what keeps me energized around racial equity work is definitely seeing inequities, like you pointed out. And then I think too, like just trying to be in community and in solidarity with other folks who are trying to fight against the inequities and fight against systems of oppression, and just trying to be in solidarity with other Indigenous and Black people.
Hi again, Will Fernandez, he and pronouns. I am the Senior Program Manager for Racial and Social Justice. I think for me, I'm gonna go with what lights my fire, fuels my engine, and especially being in a central office role, it's when I get to be around the students that we're going to serve. So whether that be going to the Jeff Roosevelt game this week and just feeling that energy, or getting to spend time in classrooms like today, the kids keep me fueled.
Hi, my name is Mary Kane. I'm senior legal counsel with the district. I use she, her pronouns. I'm going with the light as well, because I agree, it's the work that I have seen the students do and demand of us, the adults. That's really inspiring. It's occasionally overwhelming when I realize just how much more they expect from us and how we have to meet that check.
Thank you. Again, my name is Bernard. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the chief in the school system, so I report to the superintendent. And what keeps me energized around the work is the promise of what can be, right? When we get it right, I've seen some instances of us getting it right in my career as an educator. And when we can do that, that's incredibly powerful and enlightening. Welcome. We are going around the room, you're just in time, sharing our names and our pronouns, and answering the question, what keeps you energized around racial equity, social work, or what lights your fire of you living? Would you like us to go to the smaller people before we come in?
I got you.
All right,
I'll stay ready.
all right.
Well, good evening, everybody. Good to see some familiar faces. My name is Marte, pronouns he, him. My role is I'm a restorative justice coordinator at Beaumont Middle School. What keeps me energized around racial equity work, I mean, to be honest with you, I am the racial equity myself as a Black man in America. So I think not only just that, but to serve the kids, to serve, these families who don't have a voice, for people who, are looking to progress in a way that's suitable for everybody. I think some people are more represented than others. Some are not represented more than others or less than others. And so I just want to continue to just keep that fire. It's easy to get lost in the sauce, but I think we got to realize what the goal is at hand, continue to move forward with that. So that's what keeps me going.
Thank you. Sure.
All right, hi, everybody. I'm Chris Anthony Slayton. I am a principal coach for PPS. What keeps me energized around the racial equity work? I would say my son. He is an 8th grader here in PPS. I've had children who graduated from PPS and I still, have him. And I've also had children that work for PPS. And I want for every child of color, especially, since that's what we're focusing on. I want for them what I want for my babies. So that's what keeps me energized. They're all my babies. They deserve the same everything as I advocate for them.
Hi, I'm Izzy. I am an 8th grader. I go to Beaumont Middle School. And my pronouns are she, her. And I would say what keeps me energized about racial equity is just speaking out to people and not letting things go like untouched and just like speaking out.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dylan, pronouns they, them. I'm actually here from Morrison Child and Family Services. I'm a staffer on our equity and inclusion team, and we're trying to build a community advisory board at our agency. And so I'm kind of like exploring how PPS handles it, how everybody else does their community advisory board council type things. So I'm just here to absorb the process. I think one of the things that lights my fire around this work is seeing what happens when we take the side of our clients and align with our clients around race equity and just see what happens next. So that really energizes me a lot in the work that we do.
Thank you.
My name is Suzanne Clark. I'm a parent at Roosevelt High School. And pronouns are she, her, and I'm also a founding member of the Reform PPS Funding Group, which attempts to bring an equity lens into fundraising, private fundraising in our schools. What lights my fire is also my child and all the wonderful things she's learned about equity within PPS and the hard things that she's learned. But prior to having a child, for me, equity has always been sort of a grounding force in democracy and the kind of democracy that I want to live in, that we don't necessarily live in.
Karen Frazier. I am the very new executive director of the Center for Black Excellence, which is focused on race and that's why I'm at this meeting, trying to get a sense of what is going on in PPS and who's working on what. What lights my fire around racial equity work, I think echoes and ties together what a lot of folks have said. I know what it feels like to be a little Black kid and the difference it makes when teachers believe in me. When I was in 3rd grade, I got glasses, so you can see, still wearing them. And a Black teacher that I had, sort of pulled me aside after I'd done pretty poorly in the geometry meeting. And she said, well, is it because you couldn't see the board that you didn't do well on this test? And I was shocked. I was like, no, I could see fine. I just don't really know my shapes that well. But knowing what it means when a Black teacher or any teacher assumes the absolute best of you rather than the absolute worst, and the difference that makes for your own confidence and your desire to do well is sort of what drives me.
All right, thank you everyone for sharing. I really appreciate everyone putting a little bit of themselves into the space, and I hope you will continue to do that as we have conversation tonight and in the future. So we keep going. I wanted to just share a little bit about my background because I know many people were used to Ms. Ledesma's leadership for a long period of time. She resigned from the district effective, was that July 3rd? July, and so the superintendent Guerrero approached me, knowing a little bit about my background, asking me if I would overtake the team and shepherd them through, and I was happy to do that because equity is near and dear to my heart. I've been here at PPS for about 2.5 years now. I'm originally from the East Coast. I was born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, where I was raised by my great-grandmother. She was from the Deep South, only had a 3rd grade education, but she's probably one of the wisest people I've ever met or known. I experienced educational inequity at a very young age. By the time I was in 3rd grade, I was being bored out of my mind in school. I was getting into trouble, and they were going to refer me to special education. Great-grandma said, no, you'll test him, but we'll figure out what he actually needs. And I wound up qualifying for talented and gifted. And they moved me to an elementary school that was just 3 or 4 blocks away. And when I got to that school, I failed for about 2.5 months because I saw books I'd never been asked to read, was presented with math I was never taught to do. And all of the friends from that elementary school, the second experience, led to me getting into the top magnet high school and the top magnet middle school in the city. And that difference between my 2 elementary school experiences and the fact that none of my elementary school friends from 1st to 2nd grade did I see again in school because of tracking until high school, and only saw some of them, really keeps me grounded in the fact that we have deep structural, systematic things that we need to interrupt and blame. And so I bring that with me to every experience professionally that I have. I started as a one-to-one aide in special ed, working with one student with disabilities. Loved it, loved being in the classroom. Went back and got my degree. I was a middle school self-contained special ed teacher and became a school-based administrator with a focus on special ed before joining Baltimore County School District and working in the special ed office. And then I had some different experiences in research and data. And so although I'm the data guy, I consider myself a teacher first, because that's where I got my start, was in the classroom. And that's what I love to do is, Chrysanthus will tell you, I love presenting and helping adults learn concepts and understand things. So I came out here 2.5 years ago because quite honestly, the superintendent was like, Bernard, we need you. And the power of having a Latino man tell me as a Black man that he needed me here to help him push work forward on behalf of Black and brown children was really compelling to me. I have 2 children, but they are grown. And I had no reason not to come. Right? I kept making up all these reasons why I shouldn't move across the country and all these things. I'm like, the kids are grown, they're at the house. This looks like a great opportunity, and there is work to do here that really needs to happen. And so got in the car and drove for 6 days, and here I've been ever since. So I'm still getting used to the rain. I thought I was leaving snow and ice behind, but the past 2 winters keep telling me that I haven't done that. So that's a little upsetting to me because I was like, ooh, it doesn't snow, it just rains a lot, I can deal with that. And then last year we hit those 11 or 12 inches of snow, and then we hit this nasty week of ice, which felt too much like home, only without shovels and ice melt to make it all go away. So I say all that to say, I'm deeply committed to helping adults be better by children, right? Because I understand that's part of my role. I know when Chrysanthus was a principal, she often had me come out to her school, talk to her staff about data. I asked really hard questions, right? Like, team, there are only 6 Black children in this school, and none of them were proficient on the test and reading or math. Like, what are we doing? Why aren't we reaching them? What can we do differently? And those are hard conversations, right? It's hard. As a teacher, you put so much of your personal self into what you do that it is impossible for it to not feel personal. And somehow we still have to help people personally detach while remaining invested so that they can reflect on their practice and think about how they can be better for kids every single day that they're in front of them. So that was just a little bit about me. I thought I'd give you some context and background. You may have seen me on TV in the fall during the whole teacher thing. They decided that I needed to be the spokesman, so there I was in front of the cameras. And that was a whole different experience, but another learning experience, right? Because again, we're just trying to make sure our teachers were taken care of so we can get schools reopened, because we know what closed schools have meant for students, and it's not meant good things. So we were trying to get that done. So I appreciate everyone's support. I'm grateful that you came out tonight on this very rainy, stormy day, as it turned into in the later afternoon. And if there are no sort of questions, let's dig in. We have a required training on public ethics and public meeting law that the marvelous Mary Kane is going to take us through. And then what I thought we could do, what I thought might be a good idea, especially if I'm new to this space, is understand what topics are of interest to this group. Like, I don't want to be taking up all the air when we're here every quarter. I want to bring in additional experts who can help us understand the state of things in PPS and where there might be leverage points and where there are pain points that we need to address and we can work with. So without any further ado, I'll turn it over to me. No, I'm sorry.
Sorry, can I ask one
You
question?
can ask 2 questions.
So I was just wondering, I know you're the chief of racial equity and social justice, and you're also the chief of data and accountability, is that right?
Yeah, my title is technically just one chief. I'm just the chief of research, accountability, and assessment. And I have responsibility for the racial equity and social justice work.
Responsibility.
Yes.
Okay,
So I'm leading that team as well. So I have two teams that I lead.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions or, okay, I'll just jump in then. Thank you for letting me appear, today to talk to you about public meetings law. We can start. The public meetings laws, Oregon public meetings laws, are based on the idea that the public has a right and should be aware of the deliberations of governing institutions, public bodies. You should know what information is being relied upon to make decisions, how money is spent. These are core beliefs that the state has, and so that is why we have these meetings laws. What the laws require is that a governing body meeting and that deliberations made in those meetings are open to the public, and that the public is given notice, time, the place, the location, and that the meetings are readily accessible to the public. These laws apply, and this is to the governing body of a public body. Next slide. Because what you're asking is, what is a governing body of a public body? Lydia, oh, thank you.
You're animation as well.
Oh, I didn't know I did. I guess look at what I have. So a governing body of a public body means two or more members of any public body who have the authority to make decisions or recommendations to the public body on policy or administration. So, for example, the school board is a governing body because there are 7 members and they're making decisions on behalf of the district. The superintendent is not a governing body. So his meetings are not subject to the public meetings. What are also governing bodies are the subcommittees like this that meet, review information, make determinations and recommendations that you then bring forward to the governing body, which is the school board. And so these meetings are also vitally important for the public to have an awareness of what decisions, what information are we relying on? What decisions are you making that you are then going to persuade the school board to follow? So that is essentially what the governing body is. So next slide, please. And all members of a governing body. So that's volunteers, district staff, students, community members, they are all subject to this law. So if you're a member of the committee, you are subject to the public meetings laws. Next slide, please. These are the governing bodies for Portland Public Schools. So they all report to the school board, and they are on various topics, including this one. Next one. So what is a public meeting? I touched on it a bit. The public meetings, well, and there are some exceptions. I want to say, I don't know if you've been to school board meetings, they will occasionally, they still have to notice it, but they'll do an executive meeting. There are certain meetings that are allowed to be executive session, where the public is not allowed to be. But a public meeting is generally, it's defined as a meeting where there's a quorum of the governing body. So if this is I don't know, how many members are in the RESJ committee?
12, 13.
How many?
12 or 13.
So the quorum is the number of members that you need to have a vote. So of that, whether your quorum is over 50%, right? So and so that once you have a quorum of your governing body together, then you have triggered the public meetings law, because this is the number of people you have who can vote on decisions out of the committee, right? there are instances, for example, you may, like today, have people who are out sick and so you don't have a quorum. But if you're still going to be discussing issues of importance or issues that you intend to forward to the school board, it would still be subject to the public meetings laws and keep it open. The meetings need to be accessible to the public. We have the capability and we use it, and I think that I would encourage it. For those community members who can't make it to an in-person meeting, we have it, I would suggest we use technology and allow virtual appearances so that we can have the widest, that we can provide more opportunities for community involvement. What are not public meetings are social gatherings. So if you all meet afterward for a drink somewhere, well, no.
It could be coffee.
You can go for Dutch Brothers, you're gonna go out and.
Very clean.
Exactly. That is perfectly fine. It does not require notice. Yeah, so long as there's no discussion of any district business. One of the things that you need to be aware of is deliberating in private about things. That is strictly prohibited. So when you are engaging in conversations that you would normally do, right? So you have an issue and maybe one or two of you are talking about something via email or through text messages. That's fine. You're talking through things as you're preparing them for the public meeting. But once you start, or if you try to have that kind of conversation with the quorum, the touching base with everybody, you have now moved into the world of a meeting, and you are now subject to the public meetings laws. The next slide, please, Lee. This is one of the cases where that occurred. It's a Ben McPine case. So what happens, and this is an example of what are some of the consequences of when you violate the public meetings laws. There are two main avenues. The first is complaint being made to the Oregon Ethics Commission, which oversees, this would be an ethics complaint that they're making against us. But in this case, it was a civil suit. So members of the community could bring a lawsuit saying you are meeting, you didn't have an opportunity to hear what you had to say, and that's in violation of public meetings laws. So those are the avenues for complaint. Next slide, please. As I noted earlier, you can absolutely have social gatherings, and you will. Just have an awareness of when you're talking about about topics that you are going to bring up in this meeting. Not in general, like you can talk about general district policies all you want, but with respect to the kinds of work that you're doing here and some of the issues that you want to raise to bring to the board for review or to vote on. Be careful when you're engaging in conversations with each other.
So that applies to this working facility, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if you want to, I mean, if you're, in a conversation after this meeting and you're talking about the bond, you're not making recommendations on for the district. So you can all gather and have a long, lengthy conversation, but it's fine. But when it's about subjects that this committee will be bringing to the board for review, for discussion, that's the one. Next slide, please.
So I would never send everyone an email and ask you to reply all, right?
That's right. That's an
Because that
important
would
thing.
be.
And that's where we're looking, electronic communications. Because the public meetings law cover electronic communications. So that's texting, that's voicemail, that's email. And where I think a lot of people get into trouble is that, is that, we can go to the next slide, the serial communication, right? So you either hit what would be an appropriate communication is, I want to set the agenda for this. You're not discussing about the substantive topics for discussion. You're just saying, for this next meeting, does anybody have ideas of what they'd like to do? And so you can have it as, here's my agenda items, or my calendaring, I can't do this, let's bring this at the next meeting, not the other. But once people start responding, this topic, I feel like we have to bring this forward now. Somebody else joins in and says, yeah, what we have to start doing is talking about it in this way. Somebody then joins in. So now you have a serial discussion. You are essentially creating a public meeting. You haven't invited the public to join in. And so that's what you have to be careful of when you're doing, because I know, you need to email back and forth, you need to text each other about a lot of things, but just always keep that in the back of your mind when you are moving into the realm of discussion as opposed to calendaring, like Jenny said. Next slide, please. What is allowed and what's not considered a public meeting is the small group work. So, for example, if you had a subject and 2 or 3 on your committee wanted to work on that to bring something to the full group for discussion, like there's a plan we have, but you need to work it, or you want to work with staff on it. That will happen often, right? So you want to work with some of the district's team on this idea and then bring it forward to the subcommittee. That's allowable. You can do that. That's not a public meeting. You don't need to notice anybody. You can do that. That's fine. Again, as long as you're below the quorum, you're good. The next slide, please. Informational meetings are also considered or are within the public meetings laws and should also be noticed. And those are the kind of meetings where you bring in sort of like me. You have somebody presenting something. You're not going to vote on it. You're not making any sort of decisions, but it's informing you in some way. And so those informational meetings are also subject to the laws. There are some exceptions with those kind of informational, the on-site tours, looking at a new build. It's more, I think those are more for people are looking at rebuilds or renovations, things like that. So those are not public meetings. I touched on it, but I'll touch on it again. And you already do it, I know, because I've seen the notices. So you're required to provide time and place and type of meeting to be at least 24 hours in advance. You should also have the name and contact information for things like if somebody wants to provide public comment, they need to know how to get on the list, on the agenda. What's also helpful, you may not always know this, but if you know the topics that you are going to discuss at that meeting, that's important to put in the notice. I also touched on the location needs to be accessible, and reasonable accommodations need to be made for people with disabilities or just who have difficulties getting there. So that's why technology is advised. And public attendance. The public has a right to attend a public meeting under the public meetings laws. They don't have a guaranteed right to participate. So when you're looking at whether or not to allow public testimony or comment, there are certain statutes that require it, but typically the public comment is found in the advisory group's charter or bylaws. Sorry, also, just a reminder. There may be times when a meeting may not require us to follow the public notice and it's not considered a public meeting. But the court of public opinion is a different thing. I think, again, going back to the rationale behind the public meeting law, to provide as much transparency as possible in what we do and how we deliberate. Yeah, I think only serves us and our community. So. When in doubt, post it. And that's it. Do you have any questions about public meetings?
I guess I have a question about the committee. I was looking over the committee charter for this group. And I saw the section around team leadership is describes that 2 co-chairs are supposed to be serving 1-year terms, and they're responsible for meeting facilitation and coordinating with the group to run the meetings. And that hasn't happened. And I know this is completely related necessarily to what you're sharing, but I think that maybe this comes from some frustration from group members. You know, it's been 6 months since we've been able to meet.
Right,
And everything, and so there has been some communication. Sure. So I'm kind of wondering what that can look like going forward, and whether or not people on the committee, the members of the committee, can help set the agendas and to move forward with the work.
So, yeah, I mean, I can speak from the public
Okay.
meetings part of it. Yes, so when I was talking about communications earlier. There should be, yeah, I mean, you will have communications between the members. You can talk about agenda setting or topics, or timing, right? So the calendaring of things, and that is absolutely allowed, and you should do that. With respect to what the specific charter rules require, that's a document that has been created by this group or your predecessor. Oh, so that is something that you can amend if you want to, or you can just ask that if you say, yes, I like the rules the way they stand, let's do this. I would say, not to make an excuse, but we, November was a little crazy for us. I don't know. I know you know. I think that caused delays when we, and I'll be frank, because we knew that it was possible. Much of the fall for most of us in central office was spent trying to make sure that we have things in place if there was a strike. So I think it diverted a lot of attention away from core work, unfortunately.
I think it's fair that happened.
Yeah.
For me.
Yeah, we were just talking today, we're still coming out from all the work that we could put aside so that we could. I'm sure you are as well. We're trying to get it in place. Anyway, that was it.
And certainly, I want us to follow the charter, and I don't want to be out of alignment with what was established before I was in the seat. And I'm gonna own that as something that I did not delve deeply into. I was trying to get the meeting to happen, even face to face, to get some time together. But we will definitely address having a chair and a co-chair and how the agenda is constructed, absolutely.
Were there chairs and co-chairs last year?
No, they're
There were.
Oh,
okay.
even though it's in the charter.
Okay. Oh, that's good. I didn't have to.
Well, last year was the inaugural year also, so this is still the first cohort. Which
Okay.
seems like, whatever we establish now, you can be, sorry, I'm a real person. Sorry, I'm late in traffic.
Hi.
So I think to Anne's point, we are maybe just struggling to get up to speed with what needs to be done. And
Yeah.
so whatever, if we retain this group, if there's a shift, if there are new elections, if there's something established for the next class. So
Thank you for that. Are you a member? Are you still something?
yes, I am.
Okay.
I was in Vancouver, torrential downpour. It was just a nightmare. But
No, the rain happened here too. It just traveled north. No worries. I was just wondering if you should be at the table with
Do you want to
us.
sit at my?
So
Okay.
I
Understood. Understood. More than welcome.
thank you.
Are there any additional questions for Mary? Thank you.
Thank you for letting me come to speak to you today. I appreciate it.
I know it's never the most exciting things when we have to talk to the legal team.
I know,
Unfortunately.
you guys are all about to like the brainstorm and I'm being boring legal stuff, sorry.
So what I'd like to do is call an audible, if I could. Excuse my sports analogy, but I would like us to discuss this idea of having a chair and co-chair elected and how we might be able to proceed. I don't want to try to do it tonight, but I think if we could notice it for the next meeting, we could possibly, that could possibly encourage some of our friends, and we notice it early enough, like maybe with an email communication that says, here are the topics we're going to touch on. People would, be able to participate either in person or virtually, and then we could, have that, we could make sure we're in alignment with the charter, because I don't like being out of alignment. I'm a rule follower, I don't like breaking rules, so. We're gonna work on that, so I welcome your thoughts, the thoughts that you do have, if you put those into the space around, how we can go about the process unless the charter has it completely outlined, and it might.
Let's see, so it says co-chairs are responsible for meeting facilitation, coordination with the staff to develop meeting agendas, materials, and follow-up. Co-chairs will be points of contact for the superintendent and Board of Education. And then it says 2 co-chairs will serve 1-year terms. Co-chairs will be selected by the committee. At least 1 co-chair needs to be a student. So that's the entirety of.
But it does it go into how the chairs are?
We don't have an outline process of how to, well, or nominate.
Okay,
I'm just taking notes, sorry, I thought I was on the scene.
thank you, Will. So perhaps we could talk a little bit about how we would like the process to go in terms of establishing a chair and a co-chair. Have there been other students here in the past?
There have, I think there's now, including there's 5.
Okay, awesome. I didn't want you to be co-chair by default there. In my world, we call that being voluntold
Right.
to do something, right? Right, did you tell me if you're a volunteer? So that's great, I'm glad there are more students. Processes I'm familiar with, and again, I don't want to take all the space of it, take all the air. I've been in spaces where on committees, people could self-nominate. I've been on spaces where people could nominate other people. So either of those was okay. And I don't know if this body has a preference or wants to allow both of those things. But I think we should talk about that.
Can I ask, since there isn't a quorum, does that?
Oh,
does that matter? Sorry.
You can discuss and not, we
Discuss,
can't have a
oh.
vote, we don't have a quorum, I count.
We would have to,
Okay.
have to vote in the following meeting.
We need 1 more person to have a quorum, because I don't count, you don't count.
Right.
It doesn't, well, I mean, in quorum.
I know.
So do we want to, we can't vote. We could discuss and sort of make and take some notes that the larger full body could review and agree to and vote on at the next meeting. Do we wish to do that before we go into a topic brainstorm? And sort of outline some ideas around how the chair and co-chair can be elected?
I'll get started by saying, I think it needs to be, the option needs to be to self. We need to know what he wants to do, has the capacity to do it.
Self-nomination, and I'm seeing nods. Okay,
Also, I think that people should be able to nominate others. I like both, because there's people who might not step up otherwise. Actually. So having an option for both would be good.
Speaking of the person who is always told to step up, and who is always pointed at to step up and do something.
don't be telling me like that.
Well, that's what it is.
Yeah.
But speaking of that go-to person who needs to take a step back.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, I agree with both, but like somebody nominating you might put extra pressure on you. We don't know why they won't step up. It could be all kinds of different stuff, you know?
I think we can just offer whoever is interested, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think in that would inform us on one, who thinks they have the capacity, and two, how many people are interested. There may only be one or two people who are interested in doing it. Okay. I think, having a conversation here and then posting it, we'll be talking about that in the next case. Should be, giving a deadline for people to get their hands up during the possible year. Assess their workload, their life. I think raising hands, we just.
Well, if you give a little something, so we know, so we aren't talking over each other, if it's small enough, I think we can.
I do have a question.
Yeah.
So, being that this is the first, class, what are the next steps? Next meeting would be the inauguration of the next class, or would it be a continuation of this, and is there gonna be an overlap? Like, how are we operating with regards to, moving forward with new councils? Or I don't think that I saw anything about that, or heard anything about any applications or anything.
Our current membership, continues. I think you all signed up for 2 years.
That it was, I thought it was just a year, the first year, I thought it was 1 year. But maybe I didn't know what I thought.
The language in the charter, if it helps, is student members will serve 1-year terms, adult members will serve 2-year terms. All members will have the option to reapply yearly for additional 1-year terms. So at the end of this term, any adult can choose to apply again for just 1 year and then apply again, kind of like on a yearly basis if you want. And then students can also reapply, but we're only asking them to do 1 year commitments instead of 2.
Very good, because I knew about the 1 year application, I did not realize that it was 2 years, and I haven't read that charter in 9 months.
Yeah.
So thank you very much.
And one student did graduate last year, so we have that space vacant. We also had a staff member, move and family move. So we have student, a parent, and staff.
Is this,
I have a question. Does that impact what our quorum is then, since those spots are all vacant?
Well, we still have,
Or we still have 12 here, okay.
yeah, we still have sufficient members.
Can I ask too, with those open positions, are you currently recruiting for those roles?
So that's a great question. I had a conversation with Dr. Adams about this a couple of months ago because I was thinking we could go to the applicants who were not selected the first time around and select from there. However, I'm glad we're having this conversation because it's a great topic for members to have in our.
the selection process in the future, will that be for the council to vote, or will that be back to administration and board?
I'm gonna need to research that, if I'm being honest. I need to dig into that. So I apologize for not having that answer on the top of my head, off the top of my head, excuse me. But I wanna make sure we're doing things, that everything's on the up and up. And we may have to have the board appoint new members, for the members that have left, and to appoint the next round of members, from the application pool that we would need to generate. So thank you for the question. So, Lydia shared an idea around one way to try to, complete our membership, which would be going back to those highly rated applications that did not get selected the first go around. And I just want to pressure test that in the room to see how people feel about that.
I want to say that I think that it would be great to put it out there to everyone first, and to see what kind of interest you might get, because there are a lot of people who didn't originally know about the committee itself. And so if you're able to get the word out to, a broader group of people, then you'd have more to pull from. And I love the idea of, because students are coming through every few years, you'd have more of a student population to pull from too.
Anybody else have any thoughts on this, please?
I would say both. I would say put it out there, kind of like Ann said too, and then also too, I think the people who initially probably get selected to kind of, I don't know how that process works, reaching out or, making them, making that available too to them, like, hey, now, whatever that may look like. I think both, because somebody that may be waiting, maybe, oh yeah, I'm ready right now. You know what I'm saying? Because low key, like, this is about the right now. We ain't got, time is ticking. You did, what I'm saying? We could wait. But somebody that's ready to go, it's just like sports. Like you just said with analogy, like if you can look on the bench and be like, oh, you ready? Let's get it. You know what I'm saying? So I think both really put it out there, but then also to the people who didn't make it, it's like, is you ready? The opportunity is here, right? So I think probably both can benefit a broader audience, but also benefit the ones that's like, oh, a spot open up, you know what I'm saying? Do I have room to, get on the team? It might be.
To that point, would they then have to submit a supplemental? Would they come in with, sort of a new 2-year? Or would they be finishing out the replaced member's term? Right, so like if I come in now and there's only 3 months left and I'm filling the spot, am I filling this spot and then going to be moving on for the rest of the term? Or will I need to, will I start fresh right now and have the full term? Does that make sense?
Okay, start fresh.
Kind of like an interim thing.
Yeah, like
Yes.
an interim, or am I brand new as if anyone would be? And then, so my 2-year term starts in April. And then someone else's 2-year term would start at recycling. Do we have that defined or do we know?
I would say just your time shouldn't have to do with filling in somebody's spot. It might, I'm just saying, like, if you come in, if you're a student, for example, you come in, a student graduated, the student come in, just because that student graduated or because that student, whatever, is not a part of the team for whatever reason, that ain't got nothing to do with show yearly or however those terms work. You would be starting when you start. Instead of it being like, oh yeah, you only here for about 2 more months, and then we gonna have to, now you gotta really apply or whatever. I think your term or whatever should start whenever you kind of join the team. It might be.
I agree.
I just think we should make sure that that's clear.
Yep.
Because I'm committing and then I have to reapply in 4 months, and what's the, right? So if we get the new team member, we need to make sure that they're ready to go and we don't start and stop. I'm thinking about hiring employees. It costs so much money to get a new employee up and going and then they leave every time we replace them. So we want to make sure that we are giving people the opportunity to succeed.
Thank you all for that discussion. So it sounds like a recommendation to the full body is that, if people are selected now, that their term starts when they're selected, and they would not be completing someone else's term who has exited the, that's what I felt like that is. Okay, thank you. I'm trying to think, we talked about the nomination process, for chair and co-chair. We talked about, what kind of term would happen for people who are newly selected and added to the group. Is there anything else that you've seen in the charter that you'd like us to discuss, where we might be out of sync?
Yeah, those are the two things that I was looking at that caught my eye. And yeah, that was. I don't think anything else. I think everything else feels aligned. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
So we'll capture that for the notes, and we always have the video recording, which is very helpful, which serves as they serve as the official minutes of the public meeting. So thank you for that. What I would like to do now for the next couple minutes, 10, 12 minutes or so, before it's time for public comment, is to for the group to brainstorm and recommend some possible topics. I, again, came up with this, not knowing all the details of the charter and trying to give space for voices of the committee to drive the work of the committee on the interest points of the committee. And so really interested in understanding what topics or areas this body has interest in recommending for consideration on future agendas for the chair and the co-chair. And on the screen are some topics that my understanding is were discussed last year. They're just there as to remind us that those were topics that were covered last year. And then I just open the floor for ideas and conversation about topics that are of interest to this body moving forward.
My question is, where did any of these topics go? Where did they lead to? They look like great topics, and I do the work every single day in schools in every single neighborhood, and I can't say that I've seen much of a change or difference in any of it except for the new handbook on student conduct.
That's true. I think we should think about the topics that have a variety of purposes. Right? They could be information to us to understand what is actually happening or what is intended to be happening in terms of programming for students. It could be information that we want to make, or a topic that we're interested in that we then want to make a recommendation back to a chief for. So, for example, if we didn't have the new student rights and responsibilities handbook, and it was in process, I could see a presentation that could have happened here about that. And then this body could have provided recommendations, Chief Bruno, about some concepts that then would have gone into the home. So I think we have to be really clear about what is it we'd like to learn about and discuss, and to what end. I think that's a really fair point for something. And I would offer that we could take that topic by topic.
And that does go back to the charter and just the purpose of this group. It's to advise, right? And to actually come up with those recommendations. And that's not something we've had the opportunity to do yet.
Okay. It's good for you to know. Who has a topic? Somebody's got a topic. Uh-oh. Here we go.
Yeah.
So, we were talking amongst we sent an email. Maria was kind of to take the lead and just talk about the equity and social justice that we are tasked with sort of instituting or overseeing, and how it's directly impacting some of our families that are feeling under, maybe not necessarily underprotected, but certainly under addressed with regards to the conflict in Gaza. So some of our conversation back and forth was really about making sure that we acknowledge that there are 115-ish conflicts going on. It's not the last, it didn't just happen, didn't just start, but we do have families that are afraid. For example, in my current work, we have endeavored to have culturally responsive curriculum around cultures, not necessarily conflict. We don't teach kids about the harm and traumatizing about all of the hurt that's happening. We want to introduce culture so that people can respect Palestinian culture. And so we reached out to an artist who does some work at University of Oregon, and they were afraid to come and present to a work group because of the climate right now. So that is a tenured professor who does this work. How might our children be feeling in spaces where people may have very strong views about, their culture, and really both ways, right? We talked about Jewish families and Israeli families feeling like people think because you have that culture that you agree with what's going on, not recognizing that there's a government that is in control of some of these things, not the people who live in that government, not unlike our country. So how can we create some support around acknowledging the importance of seeing all of the people in our community? I'm not landing on the stopping with Palestine, but acknowledging that we understand that there might be some discomfort, there might be some fear of, we stand with you for, Israeli and Jewish friends. We understand there might be some misunderstandings, and people might be judging you based on what they think you believe, and we stand with you. Not unlike what we do for Native Americans and African Americans and all of that. So that is a topic. It's significantly robust, and it is also timely. And so that's an idea. How do we work around creating standing with you message? It's alienated, also is culturally inclusive.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I agree. And maybe that's something that we can bring for like a more of a recommendation. And I think it's going off of that too. With the communication and the resources that have been shared by the district, I think on October 10th, like there was no mention of Palestine or Palestinians in any of those resources or in any of that communication, which I think is really harmful just in terms of contributing to the further kind of like dehumanization and invisibility of like Palestinians and other Southwest Asian and North African community members, students and families that we have. So I think there's a few things I would love to talk about that as a group and kind of decide what recommendations we would want to make, but just knowing that it's definitely something that's impacting our students and families. But seems like there could be a lot more the district could do around that in terms of offering support, offering solidarity, and offering resources and education materials that are more robust in terms of explaining the situation and the picture of what's happening. I think like typically when we've done the land acknowledgements that we do here in the previous meetings, if they call really, what I appreciate about the land acknowledgement that we've done, especially as like an Indigenous person, is it really clearly calls out settler colonialism and genocide, which I know is really hard and like kind of big and heavy topics, but it's important to acknowledge that. And I think just even being able to take that framework and apply it on a global lens and realizing how those same systems of settler colonialism, genocide, continue to impact our Indigenous students and families and like our diasporic Indigenous students and families. That makes sense.
Thing that I'd like to add is, we are in the business of children every single day. And I feel, like, not to put you on the spot, sweetheart, but I feel that the most important voices in all this are the kids who go to school. They see the people need to see them, they hear some things we don't, we hear all the stuff that's reported, but what about the stuff that's not? So, I wonder how we can always aim and endeavor to center student voice in this group. Maybe they always go first, or like maybe it's a procedural thing that we can set in place to make sure the student voice is always, you know, paramount. Or I don't know, whatever we can do to ensure the student voice is heard, the student voice is not just heard, but prioritized, not glossed over.
Maybe that's something that like the students could have their own kind of like sorry, but kind of like she was explaining with having like the working groups, like maybe the students could have a working group where it would be under the quorum and you guys could meet and discuss whatever is most urgent, like in kind of a more student-centered space where it's just students and not like other staff and adults, and then make like set an agenda from that you send to the larger group, and then that comes into the space. If that makes sense.
Izzy, I'm putting Izzy on the spot. That's my girl. She got on my food. Is there anything you feel like that you see or that you hear?
See, that's why I'm not trying to do.
Oh, no, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. She know me, so. Is there anything, because I know that, not easy to speak for herself, but she has had a very challenging first 7-8 years of school in terms of her experiences. And I know that from conversations with her and her mom and things like that. So how do you feel?
I like the like small group student idea, the idea of just talking about things first, because we do see things from like the different ones. Because there are things that don't get reported that do have like a bigger team, so.
Are there any particular topic that come to mind for you from your perspective?
Not at the moment, I don't know.
Sorry.
I don't think so.
I know you will. Sure. I know you will. Thank you.
The hot topics among a lot of administrators, hate speech. There's this song, what am I supposed to do? Every time it comes up, and it is firing off in every single school. Every school, every school.
So when we talked about it in the spring, about hate speech, there was some kind of a protocol that was supposed to be followed every time, and often it's not followed, like it's not documented. Is that different now? Is that still, do you know?
I have not seen. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was actually gonna say, and if you all vote on this as a topic, I think to Dr. Adams' point, this is actually something that we're in Ocean Mary was there. We're actually in a phase right now where we're trying to kind of like, because it's not always followed, like get like way clear guidelines on like what you do, what is your responsibility, and that nothing has been finalized. So that's potentially where this could, if you all voted on it in your forum, you could have the folks who are working on that come in and present, and you could potentially give recommendations on what like that's kind of the intention of this team, and that's like a possible, if you all vote on it in forum. But I think that's a prime example of where this group could be.
I want to keep us mindful of each other. I appreciate everyone's contribution so far. Yes, please.
Okay, I just came across this quote, and because Anthony's been talking about this, and quote from James Baldwin. The children are always ours, every single one of them, all over the globe. And I am beginning to suspect that whoever is incapable of recognizing this may be incapable of morality. And it just seemed really apt to what we're talking about. And I also want to bring up another topic I'd be really interested in us talking more about. And I know Suzanne will be able to share more about, but it's the idea of school foundations and school foundation reform and the way that they operate and the way that they affect this everyday student experience 100%. It's completely different. It's a completely different experience if you go to Lincoln High School versus if you go to Roosevelt High School. Because of the money that's flowing in through these foundations that are just focused on each individual school, right? And I know a lot of you probably already have a lot of information about this, but I think it would be an appropriate topic for us to give recommendations to the board about, and love for when we get to the public comment part, Suzanne to share more
Sure.
around this stuff.
So thank you all for putting all of that in the space. I appreciate everything and agree with you for some of this. I've heard some really disturbing stories of hate speech coming from very, very young students and adults unable to navigate what to do, which is concerning. So we have this list. Bill's taken some notes. We'll look back at the recording and make sure we capture everything. So when we come next time, we'll have the recommendations for whoever is then elected chair and co-chair to consider in terms of agenda items and topics. It is now time for public comment.
Okay, we have Polly Johnson. We have Brian Van. Polly, can you hear us?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. Hi everyone. Thanks so much for giving me some time to speak here. I'm Holly Johnson. I'm a school counselor at Grant High School. I'm also here representing quite a few other educators and PPS union members of a coalition. And also I was invited by Nohea. I've worked a little bit with Nohea about Palestinian solidarity. And so I was going to read like this whole statement, but I'm glad that that topic was already brought up in the discussion. And so I kind of just want to, reiterate that there is a group of educators and PPS school workers who really are, ashamed and disappointed by PPS's statement and also kind of like continued censoring around Palestinian genocide. And it makes me concerned for students who either identify as Palestinian or even perceived as Palestinian or visibly Muslim or Arab, because, we're talking about student voice and a lot of students don't even feel safe to share or publicly identify as Palestinian during this time right now. And so, I worry that even when staff members are censored around Palestinian genocide, that people who are just living their lives and trying to exist as themselves do not feel affirmed in our schools. So I would just, really like to urge this committee as the Racial Justice and Social Equity Committee to join me and some of these other union members putting pressure on our superintendent and the school board to publicly and unequivocally condemn the genocide in Palestine, provide support for Palestinian and Swana and Muslim students and families, and also provide teachers curriculum on Israeli settler colonialism. Staying silent on this issue is a racial equity and social justice issue for our children in PPS, of course, especially our Palestinian and Arab students, but also for our Native, Black, and other students of color. I know other students of color see their struggle in the Palestinian struggle. We also know like our oppression is intertwined and it's bound together. And I have a student in my Asian and a Pacific Islander affinity club who's doing a fundraiser for Palestinians. So it's an issue that touches all of us. And the district has just stayed silent for too long on it. So I appreciate just the time to say that here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Then we have Suzanne Clark. I've already introduced myself, but just as a reminder, I have a daughter at Roosevelt who also attended Ockley Green Middle School and Beach Elementary School, and I helped found this group called Reform PPS Funding. We are really focused on reforming policy that enables parents to buy teachers for their school through fundraising. Less than half the schools in PPS actually have foundations. Many parents aren't even aware that foundation system exists in communities that can't fundraise robustly. So 3 years ago, the foundation policy reform effort really opened the door for PPS community members, admin, and board members to dive into a deeper conversation around fundraising equity. And it should also be noted that ever since this local school foundation policy was created in 1996, people have raised concerns about it. This is not a new thing. And the PPS Community Budget and Review Commission has repeatedly asked for the reforming the foundation policy in its budget reports because foundation funding is part of the PPS budget. In its last report, it said, quote, CBRC has made note that some schools have more access to foundation funds than others, and this increased funding is largely available to schools serving populations of higher socioeconomic status and lower percentages of Black, Brown, and Indigenous students. In a PPS board policy committee meeting 2 years ago, one of the board directors publicly called the current local school foundation policy, quote, racist policy. And to quote an article on foundation reform written by a student at Franklin High School, their high school newspaper, quote, fundraising disparities can even be traced back to redlining Portland neighborhoods, most notably the top foundation earner in 2021-2022, Dunaway Elementary resides and draws students almost exclusively from a green-lined area in 1938, in a 1938 redlining map, which was a designation that excluded people of color on the basis that the neighborhood had a high concentration of homogeneous white higher income families. Last year, the editors of Lincoln High School, its newspaper, advocated for reforming this inequitable policy. To quote the student editors, this is an opportunity to see that whether our school lies in the east, west, north, or south, we are connected by a shared experience. Our current fundraising system tricks us into believing that each school exists simply by itself. Yet the PPS Board Policy Committee, which has heard our request for reform, is hesitating to take action to reform that policy, which only allows some schools to purchase teachers. I hope you had a chance to listen to a wonderful discussion at last night's board meeting in relation to Albina Vision Trust. Fearless statements were made and optimism was abound for the future of PPS being a unified district where students do not fear crossing the Willamette River in either direction. I asked the RESJ committee to take up this issue as an item for its agenda. And please feel reach out to me or any members of our group, Reform PPS Funding, for questions about the policy or effort to.
But it was
Yes.
And I'll say something real quick before we close. If there's any possibility, maybe we can talk about this as a group next time and figure it out through email, but I would love for us as a team potentially to do some school visits. I feel like, and obviously I don't know what that look like. I don't know what that would look like, but I think the biggest thing is they need to see us. We talking about these topics concerning students, families. Let's get in. Let's go be with them. Let's walk through the schools. Let's go shake hands with the kids. Let's see the teachers. Let's talk to the admin. Let's talk to people who's running affinity groups. Like, let's get in there. I don't know what that would look like, but I think that would help because now they know who we are, right? They know that we're serious about what we're talking about. Because we can sit here and have these meetings once every whatever, but if the people don't see it, yeah, some of us work in schools, some of us don't, but if they see us, they feel us, they hear us, And I know that we really take in consideration to what these families, what these kids, what these schools need. You know, if we pull up to Roosevelt, I know, you know, I'm an SEI kid. I work at Roosevelt, Jeff, Park Rose, all of them all the time. If I go pull up at Roosevelt and some of the, and I, you know, I know some of those kids, that right there feels like, okay, like, you know, Mark's a part of this board, or Chris is a part of this board, we're okay, like, we feel like we can be heard. You know what I mean? And so I think we need to get in these schools potentially. Maybe it's, we choose a school, once every couple months and we go visit. All right, this day we're going to Jeff. You know, as many people as we can, we're gonna go to Jeff. All right, next day we're gonna go to Beach Elementary, or we're gonna go to Tubman, we're gonna go to Akron, we're gonna go to these schools, and really know and really let them know that we're serious about what we're trying to do when it comes to the social justice and racial equity work, because all those people that's working in those buildings, which some of us know, like, there's nothing better when somebody come in your building and actually really care about what's going on in your building. You know what I mean? And so I know that's something that I'm big on. I do school visits, with some of my boys, because I teach a class with SEI. And I tell my young men all the time in the class that I teach, I do school visits. I pulled up to Tubman, they looked around and said, dang, you really came. Yeah, I really came. I sat in the class, I met some of their teachers, right? Like that shows like, oh yeah, you really care and we really can move forward with some of these topics that we're talking about, the hate speech protocols, the school climate, the student conduct, right? All of those things, the answers that we need are in the buildings and in the schools, right? So I don't know what that will look like. We can probably strategize on that later, but I think we can possibly figure that out, even if it's just 3-4 of us, right? If we all can't make it, you know what I mean? But I think just that piece, I think can really help and really let these schools and really people know that we're serious about the work that we're doing, because we're sitting down with them, we're having those honest conversations and we're taking notes. We're doing the things we can do to move forward, because that's what we're doing for. We're doing it for these families, for these kids, and for the ones that's coming underneath them as well. We're doing it for Izzy, we're doing it for her peers, we're doing it for, all of us, all of our kids, all of our people. And so I think maybe we can look into that potentially to really kind of show that we're serious about what we're doing and really step foot in these schools and talk to the people that need to be talked to, if that makes sense.
Agreed.
Is that something we could arrange via email,
For sure.
like a relaxed?
Oh,
I think it's just calendaring, is
Okay.
what the Americans say.
Okay.
So I think we can get that. So.
Planning decision.
Just can't make decisions. So, we are just about at time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I want to thank everybody for coming out this evening and for your continued support of racial equity and social justice here in Portland Public Schools. I know we have a lot of work to do. I see it when I visit schools. I get emails from teachers, from principals, from parents, and I clearly understand. I think because I was one of these people think I'm in charge of something, because sometimes I get emails now that I haven't gotten before, so. I know, right? I'm not in charge of everything. But I'm hearing those concerns, and I appreciate everybody bringing their perspective and putting it into space tonight. We will clean up the notes and come next time with, some recommended protocols for election of the chair and co-chair, and have some topics for potential conversation. And we'll go from there. We will also communicate how that next meeting will be about, at a bare minimum, election of the chair and co-chair, so that we can hopefully, more people could calendar us in and make it. So, be looking forward. Thank you all for being here. The meeting is adjourned.